Welcome to the Stories Told podcast. This is episode 133, The Search for Answers. This is the Stories Told podcast. Two authors talking about stories in movies, TV, and of course, books.
I'm Michael Grayford. I write action-adventure stories in fantasy and sci-fi worlds, sometimes for younger readers and sometimes for adults. And I try to always inject at least a little bit of humor.
And I am author E.W. Barnes, and I write action-adventure, time travel novels, and space opera science fiction. Thousands of years, thousands of worlds. But be forewarned, beyond here, there will be spoilers. Are you ready for the adventure? Let's begin. Welcome back to the Stories Told podcast. I'm author E.W. Barnes, and with me is author Michael Grayford. And today we're diving into the story told in the movie Star Trek: The Motion Picture. How you doing today, Mike?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And what's new in your writing world?
New in my writing world, same thing as last time. Nothing new in my writing world. Just relaxing, chilling, enjoying my time. I'll get back into writing at some point, but still just taking it easy right now.
Good for you.
Being lazy. What about you?
Pretty much the same. However, last time we talked about how I was thinking I might do some short stories in order to keep my hand in the worlds while I'm managing some life issues. And I have come up with a couple of ideas, 2 ideas for my time travel series for short stories there. So I just need to sit down and write those, which I think I will probably get to either this week or next week. And I'm still pondering short story ideas for the Adventures of the Empyrean Guard. For the time travel series, if anyone has read that series, the short stories will involve a character named Jonas and a situation in the second book of the series. The second book is called Borrowed Time, The Force Majeure. So I'm going to write a short story about a scenario that stems from that story. And then the other short story I want to write comes from the 4th book in the series, which is called Racing Time, The Merging of Stars. And so I'm going to craft a short story out of a scenario from that story. So these short stories will be, context specific and will contain spoilers if somebody hasn't read the series. But if somebody has read the series and they want to learn more about specific circumstances, then these short stories will provide a little bit more backstory, a little bit more character development. So,
nice.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about getting those done and jumping into that.
That's good. A little bonus material for your readers.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that free on my Patreon for both paid and free subscribers, because on Patreon, you can subscribe for free and have access to free material that's otherwise locked for like the public. And so if people sign up on Patreon as a free member, I will make these short stories available there. Have you encountered any interesting stories in books, movies, or television lately?
Let's see. I've just been watching the latest season of Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, yeah.
I think we discussed that before.
Steve Martin and Martin Short?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And Selena Gomez, I think is her name.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's I like that show. It's very entertaining. It's just like light show, like cozy mystery kind of thing, right? It's entertaining.
Yeah, I like that cozy mystery that I watched that was British, that took place in a retirement community. So maybe I should try Only Murders in the Building. Which streaming channel is that available on?
I think it's on Hulu. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, all right. We'll have to check that out.
Have you been watching or reading anything cool?
Still watching The Witcher. Oh, it's so violent. It's so gory. It's so... There's a lot of sex, both consensual and non-consensual. And so it's just... I'm going to be so glad to be finished watching it, and I probably will not watch it again. And there's some really good stuff in it, but the stuff is so wrapped up in action that I'm not interested in. And there's probably plenty of other people who are interested in the action. For them, it makes, all the things, the layers that take place in this that to me feel gratuitous for other people may help explain character motivations and circumstances, etc. For me, I
Yeah.
don't need that. But for other people, it may be, exactly what they need in order to make the story feel very three-dimensional. And so I'm not knocking that for anybody else. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch it again.
Makes
And
sense.
good news, I have finished the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive and have now started the 5th book, which is the last book in the first half of the 10-book series.
Yeah, the last book for the
So
next 10 years or whatever it is.
right. So,
Cool.
I'm kind of excited to be in that book.
Yeah.
That's the one that I had to get the hardbound for because the
Oh,
paperback
right.
was more expensive. So, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say this, if anybody is, like, waffling, as I did, about getting the hardback versus the paperback, my paperback versions of the previous books are actually starting to fall apart.
Mm.
And they're big,
Yeah.
maybe I'll read it again when the next one comes out in 6 years. But all of the paperback ones are really cool. They've got really neat sort of illustrations incorporated on the inside, and those are all falling out.
Oh,
So, yeah.
too bad.
But maybe in the long run, the hardbounds are better because theoretically
Yeah, yeah.
they will hold together a little better. I don't know. I mean, glue is glue, right? So it's not like books are stitched together anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but it's nice. It's heavy. It's really heavy. It's like carrying around a brick. But so far, it's been good. It's picked up exactly where the last one left off. So, unanswered questions are being answered and new questions are being asked. And so, yeah.
Excellent.
And I think that's it. Witcher. And then, of course, obviously keeping up with Ghosts on a weekly basis, keeping up with the Great British Bake Off, which I think there's one more episode this week, and then that will be finished. And then, of course, watching today's movie.
Yeah.
Before we go into talking about Star Trek The Motion Picture, I did want to let our listeners know that we're recording this in November 2025, and we have decided that we're going to take the week of Thanksgiving off. So there will be a gap in the podcasts during that week when we're not podcasting, and then we'll pick back up after that. So if you're looking for the weekly podcast, there will be one missing that week. Are you ready to talk about Star Trek The Motion Picture?
Yeah, let's dive into it.
Okay. Today we're talking about the story told in the movie Star Trek The Motion Picture. And I'm going to read the short synopsis that comes up when you type in Star Trek The Motion Picture into Google. The Federation calls on Admiral James T. Kirk and the crew of the Starship Enterprise to contain an immense Nimbus object that's on a crash course with Earth. After investigating, the crew discovers that the alien cloud harbors artificial intelligence with an ominous primary directive. Crisis strikes when a probe dispatched by the energy cloud attacks the crew, abducting Navigator Lieutenant Ilea. An android lookalike containing her memories shows up soon after. Did you enjoy this movie?
I did enjoy this movie.
Good.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was very good. I have a very big caveat, which we'll discuss on what could be improved. Which is probably, I'm guessing, similar for the both of us and for most people. But yeah, overall, I like this movie. A lot of interesting elements to it. I liked how they got the crew back together, although some of it was a little maybe convenient. But this is the first time we see the original crew together since the series, which was ended 10 years before this, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
I think they did a pretty good job of just getting everybody back together really quick in a semi-plausible manner and getting us into a story. I thought it was good. I liked the opening where they established the stakes very quickly, very early on, right from the beginning, pretty much. I thought that was really well done. I liked a lot of the character stuff. I liked how Bones was onto Kirk from the beginning, pretty much, and his ploy to get back as a captain. Bones wasn't buying any of his nonsense, so there's very good characteristic of McCoy. Let's see what else. I liked the setup with Spock being potentially compromised by his own goals versus the safety of the ship. Because again, it's been 10 years. We're not really sure what's happened in between. And we get the beginning of, Spock trying to do his ritual Kolinar, I think it was called, to purge emotion, whatever. And then, he comes onto the ship and he senses this other, really logical being. So I like that setup there. There's a lot of cool concepts in this movie, I think, from a science fiction perspective. I like the idea of one of the characters being uploaded as data in V'ger. That's sort of a common trope now. We have that, we see that kind of thing a lot. But back then, this is what, 1979, something like that. That was a cool idea. And I think it still works in the context of this story. I gotta say also, just as a side note, outside of the actual story, I thought this movie had fantastic visual and audio design. Some of this, I saw at the end of the credits, they did a couple of updates to this movie in terms of visual effects and audio work. So I don't know how much of that is original and just cleaned up, or if they actually made new audio or did new visuals. I'm not sure. But watching it now, the latest version, I think it's pretty nice. And just the design of it is very nice. So regardless of the actual effects, the way they set it up, I thought was really cool. And for people listening to modern devices, I was listening to it on a Dolby Atmos system, which gives you, pretty good spatial sound. And as I was watching, I was like, how did they have this good sound back then? It's so clean and really fills the room. And then I saw that they had updated it in 2022. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And they did a good job with that. So anyway, that's not story related at all. I thought that was impressive. Yeah, I liked how they set up clear stakes right from the beginning. I thought they did a nice reveal of V'ger being Voyager. Because that time you just hear, oh, V'ger, what is this thing? You don't really know. At least I didn't. When I first watched this movie, I didn't know V'ger was one of the Voyagers. So I thought that was really cool. A huge callback to a world that we can relate to, even though we don't have Voyager 6 or whatever it was in the movies. It's only Voyager 1 and 2. Yeah. Still, it's it's very believable, right? And especially for the time when it hadn't been so long since they had sent those out at that point. It was still fair. I think the Voyagers went out in early 1970s, if I remember right.
They did. I was just watching a documentary about the Voyagers.
Yeah, so for them, it would have been very topical. And it's there's something that people were familiar with probably at that time more than they are now. But I thought that was really cool. Let me think what else is going on. Yeah, I think it was a compelling idea that there was this thing that was made so long ago that was sent out and has become aware, right? And it did its job so thoroughly, and it's now seeking a new level of knowledge and awareness. I thought that was cool. And there's obviously this implication that it encountered some other intelligent society on the way. They surmise in the movie that it was from a planet that had been, I think they call it a machine planet or a computer planet or something like that. Basically, an artificial intelligence had ruled the world there that it encountered and had modified it, which was also another cool idea. So they have a lot of cool sci-fi ideas in this movie that I think work together fairly well. And then I loved another classic example of Kirk's simple logic when dealing with any computer or robot. He says something like, we will allow you to transmit your data, and only the creator could do that. What? Why would only the creator be able to do that? It's just such simple logic that he thinks, the computer will buy this. So silliness like that. And then I liked that the overall story with V'ger paralleled Spock's journey, right? He starts off wanting to be pure logic, and then by the end he realizes there's more to life than that, and you have to embrace emotion as well, which we see with V'ger too. So I thought it worked very well as a sci-fi story. I think I mentioned this before. I don't remember if it was on the podcast or us just speaking. I remember watching I think it was a video review, someone on YouTube perhaps, talking about this movie and how they thought it was the best Star Trek movie in terms of being the most true to original series Star Trek, and kind of the idea of the sci-fi and having this sort of self-contained tale about this scientific idea and how it affects humanity and how it affects our thinking. And I kind of agree with that. I don't know that it's necessarily the best Star Trek movie, but I do think it's probably the most true to the original series. So I think it was a good return to the Star Trek universe. It felt a lot like a continuation of the series. I feel like it just had one big misstep, which we'll talk about as we get to what could be improved. What do you think? Did you like this overall? How do you feel now upon a rewatch?
That's a great question. I love, and still love that this was the beginning of a huge number of Star Trek movies, because I was a fan in the 70s, and I was so excited when this movie came out, and I did watch it in 1979. I'm not going to say how old I was, but I did watch it. And I was delighted that they started a Star Trek movie. And I'm assuming it's because of the success of Star Wars, which came out in 1977. And they realized that there was this huge audience for science fiction.
Yeah.
And I also really admire the fact that they did go with a pure science fiction story. I mean, that was kind of gutsy. They could have just sort of copied the hero's journey from Star Wars using, our intrepid crew, but they didn't. They did something very unique and very, I agree, in some ways, very original series Star Trek. I'm not sure I agree 100% with that, and we can go in why in a bit. And I, too, agree that the special effects were amazing. And even watching it, and now that it's been remastered, watching it, I was very impressed at how good they looked. I don't remember them looking that good. So yeah, there were things that I really liked about it, but boy, there was so much that to me, fell short, and even fell short in terms of it being similar to an original series episode. And so we can talk about that if we want. I will always be grateful to this movie for opening the door to the other movies that came. And so it has a special place because of that. But in a nutshell, all by itself, I think you say there's one major problem. I see a lot of problems.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
We'll discuss.
So why don't we talk about what we might have changed as a writer in this story?
Yeah. For me, one of the things I would have changed, and this probably comes more from watching the later movies than from watching the original series, because I feel like it's sort of in line with the original series. But I would have tried to squeeze in more active roles for the other characters, like Sulu and Chekhov and Uhura, and even Bones. Bones has more of a presence in this movie, but he really doesn't do much. He mostly serves as sort of the, psychologist trying to help Kirk navigate becoming a captain again versus being a medical doctor. So I would have liked to have seen those characters have a role to play, which they do a better job of with subsequent movies. Here it felt, that's why I say it kind of feels like the original series in that way. It's like those characters were always very side characters, and they didn't play a huge part in the original series, from what I remember. There's probably an episode here or there, but I would have liked to have seen them play more of a part. So that was one thing I noticed. For me, the biggest problem with this movie is the pacing. I would apply some generous editing. I'm actually surprised the studio hasn't made some kind of production cut or something of this movie to make it more palatable. I think you could chop out a lot of this movie and it would just be so much better, because it's hard to sit through 4 or 5 minutes of just, the camera panning around the outside of the starship. I think it's unnecessary. I think when you're in the theater and you see that, it's a little bit more impressive. Maybe it's like, wow, it's like big, and you get a really sense of the scale and the scope of things. And you're being reintroduced to the Enterprise at the time, like back in 1979. I could see that having more of an impact. But now with modern pacing. it's just so much, and that's not the only moment. There's a lot of moments like that. There's a lot of just scenes that I think can be cut down to make this go a lot faster and be more engaging. Yeah, I would go ahead.
I'm going to say that it is not about modern pacing. It's just poor pacing, period. It was considered to be slow even in 1979. And as a point to point out to you, this, again, grateful that they brought this back. I assume it was triggered by Star Wars. Star Wars won an Academy Award for Best Film Editing.
Right.
Exactly. If you're going to take lessons from this explosively popular science fiction story, one of them is going to be film editing.
I think, you're right. I think they veered towards 2001 versus Star Wars.
Yes.
In that sense, which you're right. I think it was a mistake, and you're correct. It was a problem back then. In fact, I didn't see this movie for decades after it came out because I just heard so many people complaining about it.
Yeah.
And I just there's such a negative reaction that I figured, okay, the movie's just garbage. I won't see it. And then when I did see it, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I don't know. It was probably maybe 15 years ago I first saw it. I was like, oh, there's actually a good story here. Like the stuff that works, I think works well for me. I think the acting is good. I think we get back into the Star Trek world. There's good science fiction. They just did themselves a disservice with the pacing. And I'm honestly surprised they haven't done an edit of this to release.
Yeah.
A lot more people, I think, could latch onto this.
And I bet some intrepid Star Trek fan has already done that, on their home computer.
I'm sure. I just don't know why the studio wouldn't give us a version like that. I mean, I understand, you have the original vision of the director and stuff, but it needs some generous editing.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest complaint. Otherwise, I think I actually really enjoyed the story. I thought there's a lot of cool stuff here. It feels very original series for me, but you have a lot more to say about this, so I'm curious to hear what you would change. No, lay it on me. I want to hear how you would improve it.
I agree with you 100% on the editing, and it almost felt like, this is what I was thinking as I was watching it. We spent a lot of money on these special effects shots. We're darn well going to get our money out of them. We spent a lot of money on the orchestration for this, soundtrack. We're going to get our money out of it because there was a lot of time with the music too.
Yes.
That's kind of how it felt, to the detriment of the story, which is a shame. And again, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm beating a dead horse when I raise Star Wars again, because I do sort of feel like Star Wars was the impetus for this movie. The special effects in Star Wars were brilliant.
Yeah.
But they weren't the story.
Right.
They were adjunct to the story. They were behind the story. They were, it wasn't until Lucas went back and revamped everything, and then he made the special effects more big in the story, but the story was focused on the people. And then, oh, by the way, there happens to be really cool special effects.
Yeah.
And that's how the framework felt. And the same with the music. The story was about the people, but there happened to be really cool music behind it too. And I think that perhaps, I don't know because I wasn't in their brains, but that the producers, writers, whatever, took the lessons of, they have great special effects, they've got great music, we got to make sure we have that, and lost the focus on the story. This is where I'm going to say about the story that I disagree that it's like an original series episode, because everybody was so sort of wooden in this movie. In the original series, we had Kirk tearing up the scenery about, some moral quandary that he had to deal with. And we had, Spock and McCoy tearing up the scenery about their different perspectives about what the right route was to take, the emotional route or the logic route. There was always some dynamism going on in those episodes, or most of the time. There was something dynamic happening that was really important, that was really intense, and we just didn't get that here. And I don't know whether it's because the editing removed that sense of urgency and removed that sense of energy from the movie, but it just, when you say it was good science fiction, and I agree, there was very cool science fiction elements, but the connective tissue of the people between all those science fiction elements just seems very lackluster. And I would have liked to seen so much more. The conflict with Decker over who's running the Enterprise, that seemed so forced. Seriously, in a quasi-military environment, if someone comes in and takes over command of your ship, you're going to say, yes, sir, and run with it. And not go, you're stealing this from me. Really? That felt so forced conflict as opposed to reality in what that scenario will probably be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. I feel like that was probably one instance where they were trying to add some of that energy, and maybe
Yeah.
that was the wrong place where to put it.
And to me, I guess this is a very plot-driven movie as opposed to a character-driven movie, and
Yeah.
that is part, I think, of the problem. Another issue that I have is part of that connective tissue between these really cool science fiction elements was there's this sweet spot of exposition in a story where too much exposition is clearly, explaining, telling instead of showing, but not enough exposition, and you're just sitting there going, why didn't the Klingons warp away? Why was there a transporter accident? Why did
Yeah.
Lieutenant Ilea try to stop Chekhov's pain rather than letting the doctor do it with their 24th century painkillers? I mean, we just needed more. A little bit more exposition. And with all of the dead time, there was plenty of space for someone to say something. So many questions what we're left with. Unanswered questions. Like at the end, where did V'ger go? Just sort of disappeared. Oh, we birthed a new baby. Well, where did your baby go? It's just sort of vanished.
It just
There was not a
it V'gered out of there. Kind of like the end of Star Trek 4, right? It's like, okay, the space whale ship, it just leaves. Okay, that's the end.
Yes, thank you. Exactly.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
the biggest complaint I have as a fan is that we've already done this story. This is The Changeling, which is an original series episode about a probe that went out, was modified by other machines, the other, Tonru, and then
Oh, I
turned
don't
into a
remember.
killing machine looking for its creator. We've already done this story. Why did we have to do
Oh,
it again?
I don't remember that one. What was that one?
It was called The Changeling.
Changeling. Yeah.
Yep. I don't remember which season it was. But anyway, it was essentially the same story.
Yeah. Okay.
It was eliminating the carbon unit infestations on planets.
No, it's the same thing.
Yes.
See, that's
And
why I thought
so
it felt like an original series show, because it was.
so that was actually deeply disappointing because as I've said before, there is so much possibility available in science fiction.
Yeah.
And it's just you're only limited by your own creativity to figure out how to tell a story of something really cool. And to rehash the Changeling story and turn it into V'ger was disappointing for me. And I remember thinking that at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah,
I was,
I haven't seen that in so long, but I could
yeah,
definitely feel that too. If you,
yeah.
I believe I would feel the same way if I had seen that recently enough.
And I will also say this. We do have in the next movie in the series, Wrath of Khan, a continuation of a story from the original series. So if they had done that, or something along those lines, I think that would have made it okay. I don't know that they could have done a callback. They destroyed that probe in that by outthinking it. I'm also going to say that I don't think that there was character continuity. You're talking about how Spock is trying to decide if he's going to be personal or, logical, and that makes absolutely no sense to somebody who almost completed the Kolinar. Kolinar is to purge emotion altogether and rely on pure logic. He had spent however long in the desert on Vulcan working on this. I find it hard to believe that that would still not be a reactive response to rely on logic as opposed to emotion. And yes, he had some drive. Oh, there's another unanswered question. How did he hear V'ger communicating in space?
It's
He did more exposition.
It's Spock's magical power of the week.
Well, I want an explanation.
It's his.
If that's the case, why didn't he merge with Ilea?
It's because he can mind meld. He melded with space.
So I just sort of felt like that part wasn't actually very consistent with Spock. And your point about the other characters not even having a role doesn't give them an opportunity to have their character continuity. Even Kirk didn't behave like his usual character with, making a really cool speech about something morally or ethically important. I think your summary that it's more 2001 is bang on. That's exactly what it felt like. So I think that was a brilliant connection that you made.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't think I'm the only one to make that connection. But I think for me, and see what you think about this, this felt like a Spock story. And in fact, a lot like the first 4 Star Trek movies almost feel like they're Spock stories in
Yeah.
terms of like who's at the forefront kind of and who makes the most impact. I mean, this is definitely if anyone has a journey they go on in this movie, it's Spock, right? Of the
Yeah.
characters. Like Kirk doesn't change at all. None of the other people change at all. It was about Spock learning that you have to have, you can't just jettison your emotion, right? There's more to life than just logic. So I like that. I like that paralleled the story. But look at Star Trek 2, right? Spock sacrifices himself. Star Trek 3, obviously, is the search for Spock and him coming back. And even in Star Trek 4, he's one of the, I mean, it's not necessarily about him, but he's definitely one of the standout characters. Maybe it's just, they realize that Leonard Nimoy has a level of charisma that they can utilize or something in the stories. But it seems like it started with this one, right? With Spock being sort of the standout character. Interestingly, I don't know.
There are a lot of people who are fans of Captain Kirk, but there are a lot of people who are fans of Spock as well. And I think that they were trying to bring in both fan bases.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, I don't have a complaint about it. I think he steals a lot of the scenes that he's in. Just because of Leonard Nimoy as an actor, he'll just give a look, and it's like it has such an impact. He doesn't even say anything in a way that none of the other characters have. So for me, I mean, I'm completely fine with that. I just thought it was interesting because I didn't remember that from this movie, that it was basically about him. Something else that you mentioned in terms of like, they redid this story before, or they had done this story before, and this was kind of a redo, and it makes me think of sort of like a throwaway comment, right? Of, Voyager was out there, and it was found by this machine planet, and then added onto and sent back on its mission. I'm like, I want to know more about that machine planet. That's like a whole different concept and world that you opened up. Like that, given that this was a remake, like, why not take us to there and make it more about that? That would be very interesting.
I agree. That would have been very cool if they'd had to go there if that was the urgency, was to go there to get them to, reprogram V'ger so it wouldn't destroy Earth. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, something like that. That would have been awesome. But overall, I still liked it. I still thought it was enjoyable. If it had been significantly edited down, it would have been much more enjoyable. But I also agree with everything that you said. I think all of those suggestions would make this better.
Yeah. Did you find any themes in this story?
I mean, I think the theme for me is the one that follows Spock and V'ger, which is true understanding requires more than logic. That's what I got.
Okay. I like that. I got better together. I think the idea that was intended for this story was that pulling the band back together was the way that universe annihilating problems are going to be solved.
Yeah. Gotta put Kirk back in the captain's chair.
Gotta get Spock back from the Kolinar.
Yes. Excellent.
As a writer, what do you take away from Star Trek the Motion Picture?
For me, the biggest thing is staying true to your origins, but don't overindulge. I think this was too indulgent, like you said, in the music and in the effects and in, look at us, we're on the big screen now, and not just getting to a story. And you're right. It could have been as much about the characters as it was about the science fiction. So that's my takeaway.
And my takeaway is the things that we're talking about, don't leave so many unanswered questions. There is a balance between too much exposition and not enough exposition, and to take your great science fiction ideas, but make sure that they're connected with really strong connective tissue related to answering questions and character continuity and moving the story forward in a timely way. Thank you for joining us as we talked about the story told in the movie Star Trek the Motion Picture. A huge thanks to our Patreon supporters and all our listeners. Your support noticed through every like and every share means the world to us. If you enjoyed today's themes, here are some further readings. Michael's Tales of Zara series was inspired by the Arabian mythology of 1001 Nights. Start with the Golden Scarab of Balihar, an enchanting quest that will captivate readers who love magic, wonder, and strong heroines. Links are in the show notes if you're curious to explore more. The Stories Told podcast is on all major platforms. Please like, subscribe, or follow to help us reach more story lovers like you. For book, TV, or movie suggestions, drop a note on our YouTube channel, and that link is in the show notes. You can find Michael Grayford at michaelgrayford.com and E.W. Barnes at 1000years.com. Join us next time as we talk about the story told in the movie Time Bandits. Thanks so much, Mike. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll see you next time on the Stories Told podcast.